In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Hey folks, Grampian Nation, glad to have you back. We have asked Ryan Ruffaner from Texas to come and join us and spend some more time talking about something that is maybe uncomfortable, but also essential. And we have gotten like-minded about some of the things that we experienced. We're going to talk a little bit more about the experiential side of DEI today, but we're going to actually bring up the origins, which people don't know. And so we're going to talk about that. Welcome, Ryan. Man, it's great to have you back in the Grampian. How you doing this week?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me back, by the way.
Hey, I'm awesome. And I think that some of the information that we're getting back is people are stunned by what's happening in America. And you are the leading voice or the leading student of the what I would call the epic failure of DEI in their, I mean, again, I want to go back. Diversity is good, equity is good, inclusion is good, environment is good, social is good, and governance is good. All these things are good until you name them something they're not and practice what they're not, enforce what they're not. So we promised the folks here that we'd dive in a little bit, and I've done some study. I thank you for getting me great information. DEI didn't start out DEI, it actually started out ESG. And it started out by a bunch of intellectuals in Europe at the UN, led by Klaus Topfer at the United Nations Environmental Program Financial Investment Committee, blah 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 blah. I mean, this is like an like who gets 9-letter acronyms, right? So the UN does. And so in 2003, they said, "Hey, people are demanding that we have metrics that are ESG." And I have asked the question, who was it that demanded that? And you know what the answer is?
Who?
No answer. Okay, so I get that. You might not know. So then they said, well, we sent out this broad, far-reaching inquiry to the brokerage houses around the world. Now, recognizing that the biggest brokerage houses are in the United States, they would require some type of response from the United States. So they sent out 50 inquiries to brokerage houses saying, ESG is so important, you got to tell us how to make it more important, and we got to have to way to make it so we make it measurable. Okay. So it sounds good, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
out of their 50 inquiries, they got 9 responses back. They upgraded it to 11 because 2 people responded twice. And all the folks that responded were from Europe. Interesting. Now, add to that they say that one was from the US, but it was from the European office of a US based company. So so there might have actually been US based people there, but that's not the point. Okay. So they got this whole agenda that's formatted in advance, and they say, we want to change the measurement of fiduciary responsibility. Like what? So there's something called the prudent man rule, which says, hey, you better treat somebody else's money like it was your own. And then they made it a prudent investor rule saying, you better make sure, and this goes back to 1979, you better make sure that you're diverse and that you treat somebody's money like your own. So like, don't go wholly speculating with somebody else's money in the stock market if they're like 78 years old, because that wouldn't be good for them. And so you have to have a little diversity, great word, financial diversity, and you have to treat the money as though it was your own. You have to do what a prudent man would do. You have to do what a reasonable person would do. And then in 1992, it got upgraded to say, hey, if you're part of a pension fund, don't mess around with other people's big money because now you have more influence. So, and then it got upgraded again in 2004. Not so much in the US at that point, but they said, we're going to use a score that we assign to you. And the score that we assign to you is based on environment, social, and governance. And that's as important as as important as the return that you provide to the people who trusted you with money. What's wrong with that?
A lot, honestly, a lot. Well, look, here's the thing about money and meritocracy. A company must create value, and the best way to measure that value is through money. So when people say, well, it's bad that corporations care only about money, I agree with that. If you're exploiting people, you're selling a bad product. Don't sell cigarettes to kids, all right,
Yeah.
as an example. But you measure your company's value through the money you make. So you ideally create a valuable good or service, sell it, and then you can tell how much people like it or benefit from it from the money they spend on it.
Mm-hmm.
If you change that to things that are purely environmental, social, or governance based, and that's coming from the top down, coercion from the government or from investors, you're no longer playing to the market and giving people what they want or need. You're doing what you are forced to do. And that's not the same thing as creating value.
And the UN, they use these reports as, and their authority, and their authority is perception of authority, because it's not, they don't govern me, but they use these reports to coerce U.S. brokerage houses into adopting. And then they said, hey, this is so important that we need to make governments do it. And so now we're going to start to assign scores, ESG scores, to governments, and that turned into the S part of it, the social part of it, is what transformed into what we now call DEI.
Yes.
So ESG morphs into something that's bigger, greater, stronger, faster, more important, and of critical mass, because now the investors, quote, the investors are demanding it. And if you ask what investors are demanding it, this was like this small group of large, important leftist investors in Europe. And there's no way to dispute that, because that's where all the influence came from. That's where the genesis of this is. So the first mention of ESG and DEI are actually in a report from 2000, developed during 2003, published in 2004, and then expanded on every year all the way through the new modern investor rule, which restates, which legally in Europe now restates what fiduciary responsibility is. That means I get to take good care of your money as long as ESG numbers are right. Well, wait a minute. I didn't give you my money to like clean the curb. I gave you my money to actually add some money to it. And then give it back to me. It's not your money, but they act like it's theirs.
Yeah. The other thing I'll add to that is that a lot of the ESG values are poorly designed and poorly measured. I'll give you an example. ESG, so a lot of people will care, especially about environment. Let's say pollution. I live in Texas, very big oil and gas, chemical refining place. I care about pollution. When I go someplace,
you're an idiot if you don't.
Yeah. Pollution, bad. Clean air, good. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. However, ESG will sometimes use bogus diversity scores based on discriminatory, exclusionary, and unequal, how I like to call DEI, discrimination, exclusion, and inequality. They will use those scores for forced diversity hires to offset their low environmental scores. So they can, for example, pollute just as much as before, if not more, but bury that in numbers related to diversity hires.
What?
Yes.
So I can actually pump junk into a stream where I trout fish. I mean,
yes,
I don't want junk in there. I mean, I can throw it into my duck pond, and as long as I have other scores that are higher, that won't matter.
It won't, in a way, because you're hiding it. So let's say you get a 2 on environment because you're really bad at this, but you get a 10 on diversity hires. You get a 10 on adding diversity to your board of directors. Suddenly, you don't have that low an ESG score overall. You've hidden the pollution in your diversity scores.
This is purchasing sin.
Basically, yes.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow. So, I want to go back. I mean, we've established that this is driven by the UN, and then
Yes.
it's been picked up by American schools, American government, and American business, and then it's been driven to small business, who does not have the power to reject it in large part. And how do we get people to understand that, number one, we're the good guys? I mean, I really want people to understand we don't want to do the wrong thing. We want to do the right thing for the right reason at the right time. And this ain't it.
Yeah.
I've watched as my people are disheartened by the effects of DEI and ESG in their daily work. When they are subjected to things that they shouldn't be subjected to, it's disheartening. How do we grab a hold of this message and turn this ship around? This is a big boat. This is an ocean liner that we got to turn. This is a battle cruiser, man.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Before I answer that, you said your people. What do you mean by that? Your people being affected by this?
Over the past 23 years, people call me a serial entrepreneur. That's because when I get something and it gets better and it gets bigger and it gets stronger, in one case, I moved it to private equity, and then I started doing something different again. But the people who I hired over this 20-some year career as the CEO of Legacy Telecommunications, I love these people. I don't want them to be discouraged. And I've watched as the practices of the corporate and the government and I mean, even the enforcement at the enforcement level of seemingly empirical things, like, I mean, think of the building code. The building code is awesome because it said everybody plays by the same prescriptive written rule. And then you get a building inspector who's enforcing that rule, who doesn't like your DEI stance. And so he uses enforcement activity to change how he treats your people. It's wrong. When I see that the folks coming out of the construction management schools are now infected with this ideology that's inappropriate, that you should select a person of this group or this class or this you need to pick someone with this physical characteristic, otherwise you're bad. Well, I don't care about that characteristic. Are they going to be able to pull me off a tower if I get hurt? I mean, and so the question that we have to ask is, why are we hurting our people? Why are we allowing this to hurt our people?
That is a great question. I think there are several answers to this. I think the biggest answer among many people is fear, because there are some very powerful, very ideologically driven people who truly do believe in this. There are also some people who are a little iffy on it, but they see it as being able to boost their career, secure their own success, not entirely through merit. If the system is rigged in their favor, basically they have unfair advantages, and they're like, hey, I recognize on some level that's wrong, but the economy's bad, times are tough. If I can get a leg up on the competition, so be it. It's just a little thing, making kind of excuses and things like that. I think
boiling the frog.
Yes, yeah. Or even the what is it? The frog with the scorpion on its back. I don't remember how the exact
Why
thing
did
goes.
You bite me halfway across? Because I'm a scorpion.
Yeah, and that's how it is for some of them, because they're, let's say you're in a minority group, you got a scorpion on your back, and you don't understand that scorpion is going to attack you because you think it's you're helping it, it's helping you, whatever it is, it's going to get you. I think most people, though, to your question, are afraid of the consequences of speaking out, because even though the amount of people who truly buy into this are in a minority, because of the way the ideology works and DEI works, they occupy a lot of institutional positions of power, and they have outsized influence on other people. It's also worth mentioning that just because you're a minority doesn't mean you're safe. Have you heard of Dr. Tabia Lee by any chance?
No.
Okay. Dr. Tabia Lee she is a black woman who was in a DEI-ish department, in a director level department. And she didn't like that she was being pressured to join a socialist network as part of being in the DEI office. This is true. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not calling a socialist. It was literally called Socialist Network.
Okay.
She didn't like that the inclusion initiatives excluded Jewish people and a variety of other things. So she brought this up. And guess what happened to her? She was fired. She was accused of white splaining, like talking in ways that are white, whatever. And she was accused of internalized white supremacy. She has a lawsuit against those people now.
Oh my
but
goodness.
Yes, exactly. All that to say, you can be black and in the DEI field, you can belong to a minority group, and you are still not safe. DEI is not your ally. It is not your friend.
Well, I think one of the things that really comes up, and you talked a bit from the perspective of a business owner, because that's a lot of that's a lot of my perspective too. But if you take a stand against the practices, procedures, principles of DEI, you're going to get some blowback, and the blowback that you get, sometimes it's direct, like getting fired, like this poor lady. Sometimes it's indirect. And one of the things that I've noticed is that if you are against, and it is a for or against thing. If you are for DEI, you're for DEI. If you're against DEI, regardless of the reasons, you are now called names. And that seems to be a tactic. Now you're a homophobic, xenophobic, racist, child axe murderer.
All the ists and fucks.
And the truth is, and I love truth, because truth can exercise grace, but lies can't exercise grace. Truth can exercise grace, but the truth is that this is inherently, at its very foundational decision-making level, bad.
Yes.
Picking winners and losers because of their physical attributes is wrong. It's been wrong since the beginning of time.
Yes, absolutely.
So how do we come against this?
Well, one of the things that I recommend is first taking a look at your position in the workplace or in the economy. All right. One of the things that we need to recognize is that not everybody is going to be able to combat this in the same way. So, for example, you're retired. I've made it my mission to get rid of this stuff, and I make money speaking and writing about it on my Substack. But not everyone can do that. So, for example, if you are the sole breadwinner in your family and you don't have any other career prospects right now, be very careful and subtle in how you go against DEI. Because, I don't want to see you put on the street or have your finances crippled because you want to take a principled stance. Now, I believe that when you take a principled stance against something with the courageous pursuit of truth and love, I believe, call me crazy, that things will end up working out for you in the long run. But it doesn't mean that it's going to go easy for you. So first, know your position. Make sure you have other options available. So, for example, if you work in the nonprofit sector, you could look at a website like Talent Market, which is a non-woke, sometimes anti-woke, nonprofit job board for people who don't believe in all this DEI nonsense.
Okay, here we go again. So you're going to see this. Hankster, why don't you put this up on the screen for us? We'll do some research on it. Talentmarket.com or .org. We'll put that on the bottom of the screen so people will know. And so that is a job board.
It's a job board specifically for nonprofits. Okay. There's Red Balloon. Again, not sure about .com or .org. Red Balloon. That is for-profit companies.
All
Might have
right.
some nonprofits on there as well, but
All right.
that
We
is
will
one.
get those. We will get those put
Yes.
up on the screen for the folks, because it's really important that we have assets. I mean, this is
Yes.
the ability to fight back means, number one, you have to. To your point, I'm on the edge of retirement. My house is paid off. I don't care if they come after me. It's not really. I mean, actually, I'm kind of thrilled. I'm honored. Bring it.
Yeah. Bring it on.
Let's
Absolutely.
engage in conversation. This is going to be
Mhm.
awesome. Okay,
Yes.
so as an industrial organizational psychologist, where I mean, you have training in this, right?
In DEI specifically?
In IO.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
so and so your jobs in the past have been to make sure that people are happy, content, productive, and doing the right job for their skill sets, and making sure that nobody is like trying to upset the apple cart of whatever enterprise you're part of.
Mhm.
What do you see? What benefit are you getting from this?
Well, to be honest, I do make a little bit of money through my Substack and through speaking engagements,
Uh-huh.
but I don't make that much money. I don't make enough money for somebody to be able to say, well, you're just doing this for the money, because I'm not. I don't make that much money. Okay. I'm doing this because I view it as a moral imperative. Okay. If there are lies, it is up to us as people to tell the truth. Where there is injustice, ironically, given how much DEI references social justice, where there is injustice, you need to make justice. Where there's hate, there needs to be love. You need to balance things out and guide society toward virtue and away from vice. And I view DEI as one of the most pernicious, destructive forms of injustice that there is in America today. So
Yeah.
my personal drive is to set things right for everyone. And I want to be clear on that. People can label me, and I'm sure they will, a racist, a sexist, a this, a that, everything that ends in ist or phobic. But I'm also doing this for minorities who are being sold a victimhood complex and a sense of learned helplessness. Okay? Because the way the DEI market works is that they cannot sell people on their savior complex if they can't first create a market of willing victims. And that's destructive to human dignity and the flourishing of society.
Yeah. Wow, that was well put, and I love hanging out with you because you got $3 words that just blow me
Yeah.
away.
Thank you.
So, when you get someone who is in, so I'm going to put you in the advice of IO psychologist counselor. You get someone who is like, they're not feeling the whole DEI mojo at their company, and they're feeling a little bit targeted. Um, what counsel do you give them? I mean, part of the problem is we got to just go along to get along.
Yes.
And I'm past that point in my career. You have enough passion for about 74 people on this subject, but there's this poor mid-level manager who's like going, I know this is wrong, but they won't let me impact my people because, like, what do you say to that guy? What do you say to that gal?
Oh, man. The first thing I would say is, honestly, there's a great book called Counter Wokecraft. Read that book. It is a small book packed full of information about how to counter this stuff in your organization. So get that book, read it, take notes.
Counter Wokecraft, and we'll put the author up as well.
Yes. Yes. I don't remember his exact name. It's a pseudonym because he works in academia, and
oh my,
it goes without saying, you got to be very careful.
So now you're hiding the truth by because you don't want the blowback. Mm-hmm. Wow.
I will say, what the other thing I would say to that guy is to document everything, especially before you make a move. So CYA, cover your butt, to put it bluntly, and document everything. That includes emails, email chains. Don't just think, well, I've got this on my email, because if they fire you and lock you out of your email, you don't have that evidence anymore.
Yeah.
Download the email threads. Take screenshots with the date in it. Copy, download, take screenshots of the messaging boards. Like if you use Microsoft Teams, consider using voice recorder apps during contentious meetings where things like this are going on. Record, document, download get all the evidence possible so that if they fire you or if they go against you, you can bring this up to the government, or at the very least, leak it to the media and let them have a field day with it.
Sure.
Have something in your pocket.
Yeah.
The next thing I would do.
And
Yeah,
that
sorry,
sounds
go
like
on.
a fight. That does sound like a fight, but I guess
Mhm.
we've already entered the fight.
Yes, to some extent. Yeah.
We're already in a fight. It's just a whole lot of people don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yes.
that's scary.
Yeah. So one of the things that you got to keep in mind is DEI is very totalitarian in nature, but it's soft totalitarianism. The difference between soft totalitarianism and hard totalitarianism is one is very subtle, sneaky, and takes longer. Most of us, because of all the World War II movies and whatnot, think of hard totalitarianism. Big parades, militaristic, banners everywhere, things like that. Soft totalitarianism is things like communism, DEI. It weeds its way into our organizations and breaks down the foundations, often without us noticing it. So, yes, we're already in the fight, but we don't notice it because it's so sneaky and subtle for many people. But again, even if you're already in the fight, make sure before you make your move, you've got all this stuff documented. So even if you say something like, hey, I have some concerns, people have been fired for less going against DEI. So make sure you've got all your ducks in a row. You've been sending out resumes to other jobs, and then make your move. Don't assume that because you're being subtle, polite, because you're coming at it with good intentions, that you're going to be spared the wrath of the truly indoctrinated DEI folks.
Yeah. And one of the business owners I talked to recently, he said the way to fight DEI is to just hear what they say and do not comply, but just kick the can down the road and don't do it. And then when they come back to you and they say, "Hey, did you do that?" You say, we're in a deep dive and we're examining that," and you kick the can down the road and you become a professional can kicker. And in doing so, you help people gently and slowly understand the insidious nature of what has become American culture. This DEI has really kind of become American culture, but it is got its roots in Marxism. It's got its roots in socialism. And people are like, well, you can't say that. Well, socialism means the same for all. Everybody gets the same. So it doesn't even measure up to that standard. It doesn't even come up to the standard of socialism. This is insidious in the best case. So as we wrap up this podcast, I want people to know a couple of things. Number one, you, Ryan Ruffaner, have become one of the standard bearers of truth as it pertains to DEI/ESG/ bad
all
guys with good intentions, good guys with bad intentions. Pick one; it doesn't matter. But as you have become the standard bearer for that, I want people to know that they can get in touch with you. So what I would encourage you to do is go on thejimtracy.com and ask. Ryan and I are going to do. We've already got people asking us to come on stage together and to chat about about his brain and my experience with DEI. So it becomes kind of the Mutt and Jeff show, or the Ryan and Jim show, which is cool because people are curious and they want to know. As we close out this podcast, give people some hope. That's really, being a Grampian means Grandpa chats with champions, and you're a champion for the underdog and DEI. That's why you're here. And so usually we talk about the grind and the things that is taken to become a champion, but we're not there yet. We haven't won. And but people got to have hope. People got to have hope. And I want you to give them hope in what we can do individually, collectively, as a team, whatever, to thwart the practices that are plaguing our people.
Okay. I'll give it to you on the three levels you mentioned. So first, the hope. then society, then individuals. So first, for hope, October 7th was a massive tragedy. But one of the things it did was it woke a lot of people up to the insidious nature of DEI and how morally corrupt it is. So when they saw college students and DEI people marching in the streets, excusing, apologizing, or encouraging supporting the systemic rape of women, the massacre of children, abductions of people, that woke up a lot of people like nothing else has to what DEI is truly about. It's moral hypocrisy, the moral rot at the core of that and the way it's infected our institutions, the conspicuous silence of all these organizations that will talk about how a man complimenting a woman in the workplace is sexual harassment, but Hamas raping women is a justified form of resistance. That event woke a lot of people up. On top of that, a lot more
normal people.
Yes, normal people,
Yeah.
including people
rational. I don't normal ain't a good word anymore, but rational people, thinking people.
Yeah, people who were previously supporting some universities like Columbia have withdrawn their support. Yeah. They've withdrawn their millions and billions of dollars of donations.
Yeah.
Several organizations, I don't remember the exact institutions, but several colleges have put up neutrality statements saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't be weighing in on every political issue in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah. You know, so there have been a lot of people waking up.
All right, number one, people woke up.
Yes, people woke up.
So that is a positive experience from an incredibly horrible terrorist genocide.
Yes.
No other way to call it. They just went out and they said, hey, we're going to kill a few thousand Jews today. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Anyway, two.
So, aside from all the people waking up, there are a lot of people who this has become a central issue for, and they're voting accordingly. Mm-hmm. There has also been the success of some people who are suing companies for DEI-based discrimination. Mm-hmm. Like Dr. Tabia Lee, like Zach DePiero, who y'all can look up in your own time, or we can talk about this more in the future.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are waking up to this and now taking a stand against it. Right. So as far as what we can do as people, we can document everything that is going wrong with DEI in our organizations so that we can then become the people who, you know, either take a principled stand against it in terms of a lawsuit, but for many people that's pretty costly.
Yeah, that's pretty radical. So just be a voice of reason.
A voice of reason. Yeah. You can say, I don't know about this. Let me ask some questions. Kick the barrel down the road a little bit more. As you say, you can passively or subtly resist it in your organization. You can leak documents to the media. You can
but we don't want to hurt organizations, but we want to, I mean, I'm going to use the FAA as an example.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
When air traffic control tells you to do something stupid, you have the ability as the pilot in command to say simply, unable to comply.
Yes.
You have that ability as an American. When someone tells you to do something wrong, you can say, I don't do wrong things. I can't do that. Unable to comply. And then make them force you. And when they force you, now you've got a place where unreasonable people have drawn silly battle lines. And you just, I mean, sorry, friend, you just engage the fight. If you have the courage to say, I'm unable to comply, you just join the fight. And you know what? The truth is really important in this fight. So that's what the documentation is about. Okay,
yes.
3.
Yes. So 3, as individuals, we can also, or as society, I think we need to, a society and individuals, let's say, we can create better systems to replace DEI. Okay, let's be clear here. DEI is bad, but we also shouldn't go back to business as usual pre-DEI institutional capture. From my research in IO psychology, and many IO psychologists know what I'm about to say, there are ways to improve your selection, assessment, hiring, promotions, and training and development that have nothing to do with DEI. All right. Yeah. So there are systems we could be building that will replace DEI that help everyone, truly everyone, including minorities. So nobody gets left behind and everybody benefits.
Yeah.
Create new systems. We can do that right now.
Yeah. And when in doubt, be kind. I mean, kindness is going to solve a tremendous amount of all the of all this, and be a generous listener. These are some things that I talk about in my keynotes, but so I'm thumping the drum here, but be kind to be a generous listener. And Ryan, you were so kind to join us on the Grampian. I appreciate you. And I think we're going to do a whole bunch more of this. We've got people talking, and when people talk, good stuff can happen. So Grampian Nation, go to the things that Ryan talked about on the stage, say thank you to him, and type in thejimtracy.com, and we will get you in touch with Ryan Ruffaner, industrial organizational psychologist. Thanks, buddy. This is Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Thank y'all for listening.
Out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.